Welcome back to Who Want a Life Sentence. Thank you guys for tapping in. Come to spend a little time with me. Please like, share, subscribe. Don't forget to hit the notification bell so it can let you know when I'm going live. I always put the Cash App up there, but I ain't putting it up there no more. We stopped doing that because y'all don't really use that, so we ain't doing the Cash App. But enjoy the video with your ugly ass still. Today we're going to talk about my experiences on parole. When you get ready to make parole, things start to change. You can feel it in the atmosphere. So once you get convicted of a crime and you are given your sentence, once you make it to the penal system, which is the prison system, you are given a grid sheet. A grid sheet is a piece of paper that basically grades and evaluates you and determines your likelihood of being released early, whether on parole or just being released. And it lets you know, according to a point system, whether or not you're eligible for any kind of early release. All of the grid sheets, everybody's grid sheet is going to be different because, of course, everybody is different. But like a non-violent grid sheet would be different from a person with a violent offense, such as a person with a drug offense or trafficking or, something of that nature, larceny, something like that, something white collar. They grid sheet might have 5 years on there, and a grid sheet might call them to do 8 months. A person with a violent offense and a violent history, such as myself, my grid sheet might say I have 10. My grid sheet actually said I had 10 years and I had to do 90% of it. My grid sheet actually said that I was eligible for parole after 40 months, but due to the parole guidelines, I would have to serve 90% of my time, and the grid sheet states that whichever one is greater, that's which one that you go by. So it wouldn't be the 40 months, it would be the 90% of my time. So everybody gets a grid sheet. Your grid sheet gonna let you know when you going home. Some people grid sheet say max out. If you gotta max out, you ain't gotta worry about no parole, you ain't gotta worry about none of that. It called doing it to the door. That means you're going to do all the time. So some people get that grid. They don't even look for that grid sheet. They get it, throw it away. So I know that around 8.5 years, I'm getting ready to come up for parole. Same time, they end up sending me to the halfway house. That's a whole nother story in itself. I'll tell y'all about that later, but in the halfway house, real quick, in the halfway house, I end up getting sent back to prison because, so the halfway house is a minimum security prison. So prison is prison. You have maximum security prison, then you have medium security prison. Like the place where I was at that I tell you guys about is maximum security, Alto. They got Reedsville, that was maximum security. You got Hayes, Smith, Telfair. All those are Valdosta, maximum security prisons, right? They have violent offenders there. Some of them might have even the death penalty or the death chamber, death row, stuff like that. Jackson State Prison rather. So when you have a medium security prison like Rivers, where I was telling you guys about, where we getting the weed in and people going in and out of detail, this is not a maximum security. It's not. In a maximum security prison, you're going to see like, if you go out on the yard, it's going to be like 3 gates. It's going to be the first perimeter gate, then a perimeter gate behind it, then a gate behind it. They're going to be spaced about 10 feet apart. Each one of those gates have barbed wire at the top of it. So basically saying, if you were to get the balls to try to escape one of these facilities and go over the gate, then you probably won't survive due to the razor wire, because it's a different kind of razor wire. It's special. But you got to do that 3 times, so you probably won't survive the first time. But if you do, you have to do that 3 times before you make it to the street with a guard got a gun on you. That's maximum security. In medium security prison, once I got to Rivers, they didn't have that. They had one gate around the prison, and it had like the regular barbed wire, the kind that you'll see out on the streets. If it's like a AT&T, one of those little buildings or something, basically just to keep the people, rodents out and curious people. Nothing crazy like maximum security prison. In medium security prison, you might, it's a lot more freedom. People have details. They going out into the free world to work and coming back in. It's a heavier rotation. People are going home damn near every day. Like intake is always open because people are going home, coming in, going home, coming in. A transitional center, a TC, aka a halfway house, is a minimum security prison. So this is still a prison, it's just minimum security. What you're doing is just like what they said, it's transitional center. So you're transitioning from being in prison to being back in society, learning how to cope with these rules, as in like paying rent, taking care of yourself, basically having bank accounts and doing what you need to do to be a part of society. So in a transitional center, you just basically sleeping at the facility. They still responsible for you. They housing you. So you just sleep there, but every day you go out into the world and be part of the world. You work, you get a check. When your check come in, they don't give it to you. They give it to the transitional center. The transitional center has already created you an account, and that money is going to your account. Once you get a certain amount of money, they start to take money out of your account for rent. But once you get ready to leave, they sign you over a check, however much is in your account, and it's supposed to be, off to your own. I didn't complete the transitional center program, which was mandated in my grid sheet. My grid sheet said I had to complete the transitional center. I didn't complete it. Once I got to the transitional center, I almost completed it. I know I got past 60 days. I only had about 30 days left before I could begin to start thinking about going home. And there was another guy there, my mistake again, there was another guy there that he was, he had made a couple of mistakes. He had got caught doing something, and he was so close to either his release date or his parole date that the transitional center, it probably wasn't even the transitional center, but somebody decided not to even waste the gas, the time on sending him back to prison. They just let him stay in the transitional center for a week and a half, however much time it was, and go home, going to continue on to the mission, what he was going to do. I thought that they would do the same thing with me. Once I got close to my release date for my parole, I got into a problem with the lady that worked at Wendy's. I'll tell y'all about that later. I refused to go to work. So once I refused to go to work, the transitional center, they came back and they put me in chains, sent me back to prison, sent me back to Dooley State Prison. When I come home from Dooley State Prison, I'm coming home on parole. What happens is I know I said all this. I know I was trying to think of what was the reason I told y'all all that. Anyway, so when I get sent back to prison from the transitional center, I'm kind of nervous that I may have screwed up my parole date because my parole date is coming, but I have to complete the transitional center. I didn't complete it. They sent me back to Dooley State Prison. But again, the prison system was overcrowded, or for whatever reason, it just didn't make it in time. They still allowed me to go ahead and go home. So I was at Dooley State Prison about 30 days, and then I was released back into the world on parole. So, when you leaving, they tell you, okay, you on parole, this what you gotta do, this what you gotta do. They give you your stuff and you leave. Like a person like me who's been locked up for a decade, even though you hear all that, you don't hear all that. You hear and all that is, you got 72 hours to report to this place, to this person, or you will be rearrested, put back in the system. All right, cool. I understand that, but what I'm hearing is I'm getting ready to go home. I'm thinking about the food, the girls, the freedom, the everything that I have not had. That's what I'm thinking about. I'm not thinking about the 72 hours, but I'm not bucking. I come home, I go straight to the parole office. When I go to the parole office, I get introduced to my parole officer. Her name is Kim Grant, white girl. I would call her attractive. But in the capacity that we were both in, it wasn't really attractive. But, I always said that if I ever was to date a white girl, then she would be, I ain't want like the milk, I ain't want the white chocolate white girl. I ain't want the white girl with culture, the white girl that was kind of black. I ain't want none of that. I wanted a white girl that was actually white. If I would ever date one, I've never dated one. So if I was to ever date a white girl, she would be like blue eyes, blonde hair, cowboy boots, really, really white, country music, singing, real white. I don't want the culture white. You know what I mean? So Kim Grant she kind of looked like that. She kind of reminded me of the real, white girl. So she was kind of attractive. I probably would have knocked her down. When I go and meet Kim Grant, things were cool. She liked me, I liked her. When you first come in, you have to take a drug test. I took the drug test, I passed it, it was all good. She give me the rules, I know the rules, I'm gone. Now, what I want to tell you guys is, from the time that I made parole, when I made parole, I had already done 9 years in prison. My sentence was 10 years. So what I've already come to understand is that my sentence don't change. This is the difference between parole and probation. When you're on probation, all right, if you have, I'm gonna break it down. If you get in trouble and you get 5 years, 1 year to do on probation, within that 1 year, if you get in trouble, you go back to see the judge. The judge can determine what happens next. He can restart your year. He can let you finish out the year in jail. He can revoke you. He can reinstate you. You go see the judge. That's probation. They supervise you. They stay on your neck. The difference with parole is, I don't go back to see the judge. That one sentence that I'm originally under, so if I get a 10-year sentence, I got to do 9 years before and then make parole. So I got to do 9 years, 1 year on parole, which is 10 years. If I get in trouble within that 1 year, I'm still a ward of the state. I belong to the state. When you're in prison, you're an inmate. When you're out of prison, you just an outmate. People don't know that. You still belong to the system. You're just not in prison. You're an outmate. You're no longer an inmate, but you belong to the prison. So if I get in trouble, I don't have to see another judge, or I don't have to go before the courts again. They still responsible for me for that original sentence, so I just can go either to jail or I can go straight to prison, whatever the Department of Corrections decide. So even with that being said, that goes good or bad. Like I said, so even if I do something bad, no matter what happens within that year time that I'm on parole, the time is still running. If I'm on probation, if I got 6 months on probation and I don't report or I don't do something, they have the power to stop it. They can pause the time. You can go back and be 10 years later, they can say, hey, 10 years ago, you didn't complete this. We paused the time. You still owe us 2 years probation. Now, they might be lenient on you and say, okay, well, we ain't going to do this or we ain't going to do that. Or they could say, you still owe us 8 months probation. We want you to do the 8 months in jail, all that. That's probation. If it's parole, if I got a year on parole and my sentence is about to be up, if I run, if they don't get me within that year, at the same date that the judge allowed it for my time to be up, my time is still up. this is one thing that I understood. I understoed that I'm still under the same sentence. No matter what I do, I can't get, like, I can't, as long as I don't get a new charge, then I don't have to go back in front of the judge. I'm just still under my original sentence. Woo, that took a lot of explaining. Y'all see, I be working for these videos now. Go on, like, subscribe, and so we can, you know what I mean? So, I get out and I go and see her. We like each other. We cool. She tell me, come back the next day, she gonna give me a leg monitor. That's what I do. When I come back, she gives me the leg monitor. They put the leg monitor around my leg. She tell me that if I do good in a certain amount of time, she gonna take it off. Like a big old wristwatch around my ankle. I wanna say maybe the first 2 or 3 days. Now, gotta do some more explaining. This is something that I adopted while I was doing time, and it actually carried me through the whole way. I've used it numerous times, several times. It has never failed. I call it the new boy role, or the new boy excuse. What I would do is, whenever I would get transferred to a new facility, I would go all the way out of bounds. I'm talking about completely. Everything short of trying to make it out of the prison into the parking lot. If I'm in dorm 1, if I'm on the east wing, I would find myself way on the west wing. You know, I'm trying to, and then when I get caught, they're gonna say, what wing you on? I'd be like, I don't know. They gonna, come here. When I come, they gonna say, let me see your ID or whatever. When they say see the ID, they say, oh, you on the east wing. What you doing over here on the west wing? And I'm like, I just got here yesterday. I have no idea. No, hell no, man. You trying to get in trouble. Look, go back, go through them doors, go back. You ain't supposed to be over this side. Again, I have done that at least 10 times. It works like a charm every time. But the thing about it is, you can only do it once or twice. I mean, within the first 2 or 3 days when you in the facility, or you knew. Once you there, you can't use that excuse no more. So I bring the same thing home. I'm out there chilling one day at the place that I paroled out to. I ain't gonna, that it's irrelevant. I mean, it's relevant, but it's relevant that I not say where. As a matter of fact, for the sake of the story, we're gonna say my brother's house. So I paroled out to my brother's house, and I'm out there chilling, and I see a chick, a girl. She walking up and down the street. Now, you know, everything, you could tell she ain't no little girl. I say a girl, but you could tell she ain't no little girl. You know, everything right in the right places. So I get to hollering at her. We get to talking and rapping, and she tell me that she's just moving down from another state. I think it was Florida. And she's still waiting on her stuff to come in transit. Her kids were coming later, so on and so forth. Cool. I tell her my situation. Like, I just got out of prison. I just done this amount of time. I just done 10 years and I'm fresh and all this. She like, cool. Later on that night, same night, later on that night, and this girl, she actually looked like Melinda Williams. If you don't know what Melinda Williams is, if you don't know who Melinda Williams is, she was in The Woods. But now she just looked like, to me anyway, she looked like Melinda Williams, just a little bit older. So for me, that was perfect. You know what I mean? Girl looked like Melinda. So that same night, she told me I could come down to the house. I come down to the house, and we ain't got to go on into that. But what I will say is, like, my whole insides were messed up because I'm breaking the rules. Once she invited me to the house, I knew that I was gonna go, but I got a leg monitor on. With this leg monitor, I'm not supposed to leave my residence after 7 o'clock. And it would give me like 15 feet. It'll go all the way to like my mailbox. Once I get to the mailbox, it's alerting that I'm out of bounds. I realized I forgot to say she lives 4 houses down from where I'm at. She lives 4 houses down. That's the first thing. Now, if I have a job, it's different. But if I don't have no job, then if I don't have no job, I'm supposed to call and get permission to go somewhere anyway. But if I have a job, I could leave anywhere from in the morning to about 7 o'clock at night, like I said. But even job or no job, after 7 o'clock at night, I got to be in the house. When she invite me down, I know that I'm going. I know that I'm going to break the rules. I'm about to use my new boy excuse, the one I just told y'all about. Once I go down there, I'm so messed up on the inside because, first of all, I'm really, really, really excited. You know what I mean? This is my first encounter since coming home. So I'm like worried about performing, worried about underperforming, worried about, worried about everything. And not only that, but this leg monitor is on my leg, and I know that it's beeping right now. It's letting the parole officer know that I'm not where I'm supposed to be. So in a minute, in a certain amount of time, she gonna be calling the house. She gonna call the house, and I got to answer that phone. So even though I'm in here with this girl, I'm really thinking about the house. I'm thinking about the house because, I can explain, I can explain I can explain being out of bounds, but if I answer the phone when they call, then, it looks a little better. I can't explain not answering the phone call. That's one of the things that they also made us understand that was mandatory. Once you paroled out, you had to have a landline. The place where you at had to have a landline, and if they call, you got to answer that phone because they supposed to know where you at all times. If you ain't at work, you at home. If you at home, you answer that phone. So I'm worried about the phone ringing. We just gonna say it wasn't the best experience I had, but it was an experience. I love it. I remember it, and I'm letting her know. Like I'm trying not to. I'm letting her know about the leg monitor. Like, look, man, let me just come over tomorrow. And, we'll get up. When the hours are different, I can explain it. But I got to go right now. She like, go on and go. I dip. I run home. Now, when I run home, I come in and. There hasn't been no phone call. I could tell because the answer machine ain't came on. So I'm cool. I'm like, good. Man, but I'm excited. I can't wait to call somebody and tell them what done happened. So that's what I do. The next day, Kim called about 7 in the morning. They call, I answer. They like, yeah, everything okay? I'm like, yeah, what you mean? Your monitor says that you was out last night from like 12 o'clock to like 12:15. I'm like, no, it's on. I was here, but monitor on, ain't nothing. Everybody who, because somebody's responsible for you, like the person I paroled out, like everybody who's supposed to be here, they'll tell you that I was here. I don't know. So they like, well, we don't usually get no glitches like that. We're gonna have you come in and check it, and if everything is all good, it's all good. But you got to, you got to make sure you stay in this house. So that was the only time I used it. That was my new boy excuse. I'm like, no, I ain't go nowhere. I don't know what's wrong with it. So very first night, I'm acting like the machine glitching, but I answered the phone. So I used my new boy excuse. I got that one off, right? Things get to going good, I go and get me a job. I go and get a job at Pizza Hut. I got a job working security overnight, and I get into Griffin Tech College. So things are going good, and things going good between me and the parole officer. This is when things start going bad.